This is the headstone of my great-great-grandparents, James Jonathan STEPP and his wife, Rebecca Matilda Merrill, located in Radford Cemetery in Madison County, Arkansas, just a half-mile from the Newton County line. They were originally from the neighboring counties of Henderson and Buncombe in North Carolina. How they met, I'm not sure, but they were married in Buncombe County the 28th of January, 1893, and almost immediately left their home state and migrated to the Boston Mountain region of northwest Arkansas, along with James's family, which consisted of his parents and younger siblings, as well as his adult married siblings and their children, and his maternal uncle. Using birth and marriage dates, the earliest record I have of the family being in Arkansas is the birth of Jim's nephew, John Henry STEPP, who was the son of Jim's eldest brother, Reuben. John Henry was born in Newton County, Arkansas in March of 1893. Jim and Rebecca's first child, William Abner STEPP, was born in the Red Star community in Madison County, Arkansas in January of 1894. Jim and Rebecca's next several years would be difficult to say the least. They were the parents of 14 children, with births spanning from 1894 to 1913. My great-grandfather was their second son, born in April of 1896. 3 of their 14 children would die in infancy during the years 1905, 1907, and 1909. There is a single headstone with their birth and death dates just above and to the right of Jim and Rebecca's headstone. Jim's father would also die during the year of 1909. He is buried up the road a ways at Buckhorn Cemetery, along with Jim's eldest brother Reuben, who died in a barn fire in 1898. These aren't the first tragedies this family experienced. Jim's younger brother John married a young Rebecca Radford not long after arriving in July of 1894. I believe her family is who this cemetery is named after. In 1896, John got himself into some trouble. One article says he went to visit a Mr. William Hensley and brought with him a jug of liquor. He and their sons, after drinking too much, began to fight, and tragically John stabbed Mr. Hensley in the throat, and he died. The article I read gives 2 accounts for how the stabbing occurred, one seemingly intentional, the other an accident. I'm not sure if he spent any time in jail or not. The following year, John's wife Rebecca died, and by February of the next year, he was remarried. Jim also had a younger sister named Mary Susan. She married a Bayless Harrison Lafter in 1903 in Arkansas. He was originally from Henderson County, North Carolina as well. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. It's been said that Mr. Lafter abandoned her and the children and went back home to North Carolina. Being distraught, she drank carbolic acid and died in 1910, leaving her aged mother to raise her 2 children. She is also buried in Buckhorn Cemetery with her father William and brother Reuben. But the most tragic loss, personally, for Jim and Rebecca must have been the shooting death of their 24-year-old son, Robert Edgar STEPP, who is buried right beside them. We also cleaned his stone this day. I will leave you with the most in-depth article concerning Robert's death. It's taken from the September 17th issue of the St. Paul Mountain Air in the year 1921. It was in the Clifty Creek neighborhood where Robert STEPP was shot at a dance in a tent by Roscoe Dixon Wednesday night of last week. STEPP was carried on a stretcher by friends who walked over a rough road, over a mountain, and into White River Valley to this place and put him on a train for Fayetteville to have treatment in a hospital. Dr. Brown and the young man's father were on the train with him. Dr. Brown saw that death was near soon after the train had left St. Paul, and young Stepp was taken from the train at Combs, where he died in the station a few minutes later. Stepp's mother, several young sisters, and 2 brothers, and his father, and about 25 girls and boys riding horseback came in when Stepp was carried here on a stretcher. The mother and sisters stood by weeping when young Stepp was put on the train. They stood and watched the train until it rumbled out of view around a curve, the mother remarking, "It's hard to see my boy carried away like that." After collecting together in the station and crying tears of sorrow for a few minutes, the mother and her daughters and sons and friends went over to Justice of the Peace Hammond's office. The mother was in the office when the telegram came saying her son had died at the Combs station. She never shed a tear on this news, as her crying had ceased, and she stoically nerved herself to the ordeal and swore to a complaint charging that Roscoe Dixon fired the 5 shots that killed her son Robert. Then she and the other women and girls mounted their horses and rode back to the hills of Clifty Creek. Thursday night, young men of Combs and St. Paul volunteered and brought the body of Stepp, wrapped in a white sheet, on 2 hand carts from Combe to Pettigrew, and they pumped the car upgrade 13 miles in 2 hours. Then they went back to St. Paul and brought a coffin here on a handcar that night. The father of the dead man rode on the handcar with the corpse. Friday morning, the body was hauled in a wagon by mule 14 miles out to a country cemetery and buried near Burns Knob. Roscoe Dixon fled immediately after he shot Stepp and is still hiding in the bush. Rebecca would go on to live another 15 years before she died from colon cancer at the age of 68. Her husband Jim would remain a widow for 27 years before he died at the age of 93.
There's a little black train coming down the track. You gotta ride that little black train, but it ain't gonna bring you back. You may be a barroom gambler and cheat your way through life, but you can't cheat that little black train or beat this final ride. Silken barroom ladies dressed in your worldly pride, you gotta ride that little black train's coming in tonight. Your $1 million fortune, your mansion glittering white, you can't take it with you when the train rolls in tonight.